Hello. It is 7:03 p.m. on January 13th, 2025. You are watching The Dovecote, episode 54 with Josh aka Joshy Mcroo, aka Komu. Is that how you say that, Komus?
Almost, yeah. Hello,
Hell
hello,
yeah.
hello. Happy to be here.
Yeah, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hey, my name is Josh. I am a blogger. I up jumped. I have released an RPG last year called His Majesty the Worm. I'm the editor of the most recent issues of Knock magazine. I am excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And people may be wondering, long-time Dovecote listeners may be wondering, Eclipse, you sound like shit. And you're probably saying that in a mean way. You're probably saying that like, wow, you really sound like you have a cold. Someone should beat you up. But no. Uh, it's a new year, and I decided I think in 2025 the Dovecote is just gonna sound bad. Uh, that's no. I'm on a work trip. I brought a bad microphone. I'm gonna bring a better one next time. I promise. But first Dovecote of 2025. Wait, actually, is it? What was the? Okay, when I click on the calendar thing, I'm kind of expecting you to show me a calendar Windows 11. Uh, did we have a Dovecote last week on the 6th? Wait, was that was that Aaron Voigt? Um, it very well may have been. Let's say I'm going to determine this now because I feel like I should. Oh no, sorry, that was Gillis. I don't know why Voigt was literally last month. No, sorry, Andrew Gillis was the first of the year, but you're the second of the year, so
Wow. Showed up again.
yeah, defeated again by Andrew Gillis. Uh,
Yet again.
yeah. Um,
I always needed a nemesis in this space. I haven't had one yet, but you know.
yeah. I read a sizable chunk. I read and skimmed a sizable chunk of His Majesty the Worm. And I
It's a
really
big
liked
book.
it.
Oh well, thank you very much. I was gonna say it's a chonker, so please don't feel obligated to like get through a 400-page book just for a podcast talk. But yeah, cheers.
Yeah. I really liked. Um, it's interesting because like I feel like it aligns with a lot of things that I have like identified as elements of like traditional fantasy that I don't fully enjoy, or sorry, not traditional fantasy, D&D that I don't really enjoy, right? Like the types of fantasy games that we see in this space. And I think one of the most notable ones that I really appreciated was like you have a real interest in this book in like process. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like the process of being an adventurer, the things you eat, the things you feel, the things you smell, the things you taste, sense, uh, the reality, the comfort and the lack of comfort. Um, I'm curious, like, what kind of led you towards that philosophy, and yeah, I guess what led you towards that philosophy?
Yeah, for sure. I like fantasy as a genre, with a lot of asterisks for caveats around that. It's something I keep returning to, especially in like gaming spaces. I I understand that making an RPG is a little bit a self-indulgent act of like making the game that you want to play, and that's all His Majesty is making the game that I was interested in playing, and then doing like seeing if I could do the extra work that was needed to share that with other people, which is difficult. That's a whole kettle of fish. Because I've made games for me and my friends for a long time. And I have kind, self-indulgent, um, extremely accommodating friend group that like plays games with me. I have been interested in getting at a certain thing in fantasy that I haven't super been sustained by the games that I've played. And I play a lot of games. I like games. I like gaming as a hobby. So I play different types of games. I play a variety of games. I try them out. I play one shot, two shot, run small campaigns, play small campaigns with my friends as I can do it. The only thing that really bounds me here is time. But I don't have enough of it.
Hmm.
And something that I've been dissatisfied with is that a lot of fantasy role playing games age out of an experience that I'm really interested in, which is the sort of like thrill and danger of dungeon crawling. When you read the pulp fantasy stories that define the fantasy experience, um, when you read them, the characters are very concerned with small details. Um, Frodo and Sam barely have enough food to get to Moria, and
Hmm.
the twain of Friendslieber, like when they are venturing in the mountains, they're concerned with like the quality of their clothing and like making like 5 foot long leaps over glaciers. If you asked me to make a 5 foot leap over a great glacier, I would be
Scary.
terrified. I mean, unless there was something there, I wouldn't do it because like that is a big leap for a real person. Um, and in my personal life, I've tried to live as adventurously as possible. And I just kind of like hang out outside and go on hikes and stuff. And the sort of things that I think about when I'm going on hikes or camping are the sort of things that I'm like kind of like would like to translate into my RPG tabletop experience. And it's difficult because these little details are often glossed over. How many times have you played a game and you're like, okay, cool, well, I have this stuff in my pack and I calculated my encumbrance, and somebody says like, the group's like laughs and smiles and like pats you on the back and is like, well, we don't do that here. You don't have to worry about that. We've cleverly figured out D&D. You don't have to track encumbrance anymore. We're just going to hand wave that and it doesn't matter. But like I'm kind of interested in making it matter, and I agree that in D&D it's probably not extremely fun to track because it's the thing there is like just addition, and like elementary school math is not very interesting to me. But I am interested in the experience. I am interested in the immersive qualities of like thinking about my character as a real person and trying to think about how terrifying it would be to leap a glacial gap and how much it would suck to fall into the water of the trash compactor pit of Star Wars and get all my shit wet and try to like scramble out of it. Like all that stuff is like in the fiction that I like to read, and it is not in the fiction that I play at the table, and I wanted to put it there. So His Majesty the Worm is really born out of that experience, and I think that and I've been rambling for a while, and I swear I will stop at some point. But to kind of like put a bow on this, a piece of fantasy fiction that I read and was reading when I was writing the game, which was extremely influential to me, was Dungeon Meshi, which has recently come out on Netflix, and I think a lot of people have experienced it since. Um, I think that nailed the experience of what I was trying to get to.
Hmm.
These like small everyday parts of dungeoneering, the stuff that every person that I've done a pickup game group with at the my local gaming store says like, oh, we don't have to worry about that here. Don't worry, we're having the fun parts of D&D where you don't think about food and you don't think about light and you don't think about encumbrance. And I was like, well, fuck, that sucks. I want that. I crave the dungeon meshy experience, so I tried to write a game that like let me get into that space a little bit better.
Yeah, that's really cool. I really have an appreciation for kind of wanting, as you mentioned, throughout like wanting to make a game that is a thing that you want to play, right?
Sure.
um, I one thing that I am curious about, because it feels like um, it feels like this game, it feels like His Majesty the Worm is kind of built out of a, or at least this is the sense that I got just from like the way the text is written, the amount of advice there is. It feels like it's built out of a play culture, and I'm curious, like,
Mm-hmm.
is that play culture the play tests that you did of this game to make this game, or is it connected to things you've done before this, or is it a bit of both?
Yeah, good question. It's probably a bit of both, and it's probably a play culture that only exists through transmission on the internet.
Mm,
I think that the game is essentially born out of the OSR movement
mm,
as it exists through epistolaries on the internet that um so like one thing, and this is a somewhat big caveat. I've been playing games for a long time, um longer a larger percentage of my life than not at this point has had RPG gaming as my primary hobby, which, and I'm somewhat obsessive about it. I really like it. I do it a lot, and I think about it a lot, and I talk about it when I'm for fun at night on Monday night at
mm.
7:15.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so over that course of time, I've played different games and I've liked different games, and I have been deeply into different scenes. Am I going to be interested in this sort of thing forever? Probably not. I like different things, this decade than I liked in my last decade of life. Um, but that, with that caveat, having come to, having like kind of like become dissatisfied with the games that I was playing, and reading online, I got so enamored with the sort of gaming culture, the play culture of the OSR scene. Um, at the very, very last part of its heyday, when Google Plus died.
Hmm.
I was not an established figure on Google Plus by any stretch of the imagination, but I was reading these conversations by people and thinking like, oh, that's what I want. I'm really tired of playing games the way that I'm doing them today, and I love the way that people are talking about them here. Um, a lot of the advice of the game and a lot of the way the game is structured and a lot of the best practices that I put into it probably are not unfamiliar to people who are into OSR blogs. And I kind of alluded to this earlier. It's like making a game for other people is different than making a game for yourself because all of that advice is something that I can internalize and kind of like just um, action for the players at my table. And if I'm going to hand this over to somebody else to try and conceptualize it the way that I conceptualize it, I need to try as much as I can. It's very hard and probably impossible to banish like all of my assumptions about the way that you think about games and try as much as I can to talk somebody that's picking the game up for the first time through my assumptions and kind of what I'm trying to get at. And so, the advice of the game, the best practice of the game will be very kind of known commodity for people that are in the OSR scene.
Right.
And if you're not, maybe it won't be. But I think that's the play culture that I'm sort of circling around, and it's the play culture that I've, uh, the players that had never played a game before, coworkers and cousins, that have never played any game before, and mine was the first. They were like, "Oh, cool, this is just what games are." And people who are coming into it, who had these other experiences, were like, "Oh my God, I've never played a game like this in my life." And I'm like, "Welcome to it, baby."
Yeah, as you were talking, I was trying to look for Marcia B's really good article on I think it was called like the OSR is dead, long live the OSR. I couldn't find it; it might have been deleted. Um, but it's a really
Oh
good because
man.
I was just like I was realizing that like oh I probably have an audience who doesn't know what you're talking about when you mention like Google Plus and stuff, um, unless they've watched every episode of this because we have talked about that before. um, I think I talked
Right.
about that in the first. If folks are curious about more OSR discussion on the show, by the way, check out. I think it's the first Lilith episode where we talk about that Marcia B article, and Wendy's episode is also really good for that. But to actually respond to what you said, now that I've gotten all those caveats out of the way, um, I, uh, I am not much of an OSR player. I've dabbled a little bit. Oh god, my mic. Okay, my my mouth is just not moving, but that's okay. Um, but I'm not much of an OSR player or reader. But I've gotten more into it recently because my partner Wendy, she makes OSR games,
Mhm.
and I've broadly just been like more curious about the philosophy, more more interested in it. And I think like one of the things that I really appreciate about OSR and something that is true about His Majesty is the emphasis uh, on like creative problem solving. Because I think
Mhm.
that's something that
Mhm.
like D&D didn't really do for me when I played that because it was like
Right.
you just have to do enough damage to the thing to kill it, or you know, you need to like
Right.
the GM has a skill that he intends you to. Um, I say he because a lot of my DMs were men, but
Sure.
that he intends for you to use to solve the challenge. Um, but I found that like, and then I went to lyric games, lyric and story games, and it was like any situation that you were in is going to be solved by a move, or like
Mhm.
the GM is going to shuffle things around until you can roll a move because rolling a move is fun. Um,
Mhm.
and the philosophy of you actually don't want to roll because your odds are really bad. And a surefire thing is much better is actually a lot more interesting to me. I've found in playing OSR games, um, I don't know, I, I, I don't necessarily know how to bridge this into a question. I guess I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that philosophy.
Do I have any thoughts on the philosophy? So, I mean, yeah, creative problem solving. I agree. Creative problem solving is the thing that I am most interested in OSR games. Like, that's the gem, and maybe that's the gem that like translates into like NSR games, like New School Revolution games, which I think His Majesty the Worm falls in under the purview of. It's not a retro clone. I think some people, yeah, and you were talking about your own scene experiences, about your lyric game experiences, your narrative gaming experiences. Um, RPGs are a big, big house with a lot of
Hmm.
rooms. And the houses have sometimes they're great rooms where you can see different sections of the house, and sometimes the silos are kind of up and you can't quite see into them, and you don't have a good sense of exactly what's going on over there. They're in a different floor. Um, but I think that in the OSR, like the general OSR floor, the subsection, the dungeon, um, there's a lot of different types of people hanging out, and some I love and I'm very passionate about. They're my friends and I support them. And there's like weirdos that everyone thinks like is representative of like larger parts of the hobby that doesn't feel true to me. Like I don't see them, I don't talk to them, I don't know them. And when I think about the OSR or the NSR, I don't think about them at all. I don't think about them at all. But like when I think about, I mean, I think my game is essentially an NSR game because it is has old school sensibilities, but it's not just somebody's D&D house rules. It's a new game with like new rule system. I love people's D&D house rules. I really like the small differences in them. I think those differences make it. But I think the prevailing thing that is carried over from the OSR to the NSR is the idea that creative problem solving is the game. Creative
Hmm.
problem solving and player choice. Those are sort of the two cornerstones, the two pillars that are kind of most important, and are these through lines that no matter what other choices the game makes about mechanics, about whether you can whether rolling is easy or hard, whether resolution is essentially done through like a free Kriegspiel like adjudication referee system, or if you have kind of more granular mechanics. Like the real themes are the game is about these open-ended situational fantastic worlds where the GM, the referee's position is to like be sort of a neutral arbiter of like the physics of the fantastic world, and the players can do anything they want. There's no storyline, there's no story path, there's no expectation that there is a story or an emphasis on having emotional moments that connect to bleed. There's these difficult situations where there's no obvious solution, but there are many possible solutions, and real world smart thinking is emphasized as kind of like an approach to the game. And I think that's really, really interesting. And, as I continue to be interested in different things and other things, um, I return to that as a touchstone for the sort of game that I most like to play at my table and run at my table. So even as I play different games to kind of keep um, my my teeth sharp, I am most interested. I'm having the most fun, and I remember most fondly the games where I had no idea what the players were going to do, and they found a cool way that I didn't think
Hmm.
about to get around a puzzle, a monster, a situation, a social problem. And I have had the most fun with that kind of gaming.
Yeah, I feel very similarly. I mostly write story games just 'cause that's kind of where
Mhm.
my mechanical comfort is. I am actually writing an OSR game. I'm writing a weird perverted science uh, OSR game that's like kind of Half-Life inspired, where you're getting trying to get
Mhm.
out of a facility that's had a full containment breach. But I'm not sure
Mhm.
how. I'm
Sounds
not sure. Oh, sorry.
no. I was going to express my deep interest in seeing it when you have it in a place to share it.
Hell yeah, yeah. I'm really excited for that one. And then also, s- some people have said that some design decisions in Sapphic World are OSR-esque. Other people, including my girlfriend, have gotten mad at me for saying that. So, you know, it's fine. Um, but yeah. Um, I'm curious. I'd love. I haven't really gotten a chance to like look at Knock. Tell me a bit about your work in Knock.
I'm fairly new to the project. Knock is a game or a magazine of OSR Brickback, put out by the group the Merry Mushmen. Um, what was the first Knock issue? Knock number one came out in When did this come out? I have added to catalog 2001. That doesn't seem entirely right. Um, I am not going to say until I can get up and walk over to my shelf and look at the copyright date exactly when it came out. Anyway,
You have
it's a
knock a
game of
clue.
OS. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I made a dumb joke. I said you have knock a clue of when it came out.
I have not a clue. But it's a magazine. But about the Merry Mushmen, um, which are just two guys, nice guys. I met them last year. Um, and it is, and the Merry Mushmen do all sorts of things. They
Hmm.
brought me on so that they could have more freedom and more time to do some of their other projects. As they kind of ramp up on putting out more OSR adventures. And their adventures are compatible with OSE. as sort of like a lingua franca for like OSR gaming. They put out the Black Sword hack. Um, I guess not last year, but year before. And they're going to continue to do knock, which is like the kind of the assembled wisdom, I think, of the OSR sphere. So if I got into the OSR scene, um, and like Marsha's post, which you alluded to,
Mhm.
kind of alludes to, like the OSR has been declared dead probably. I mean, every second of every day for every year since it became a thing. People have been
Mhm.
like, "Bat is dead," and probably true, and probably something new is in its place that we haven't given a name to, and probably, um, the different people are like being brought on, and but like also like your body, your cells are dying all the time and your skin is sloughing off all the time and they're regenerating and like you're still going. So like it's dead and it's not, and there's new things coming out of it and splintering, and also the old heads are still there, and in the big level of it in the house of RPG, the party is still going for sure on that floor, no matter what you want to call it, and like no matter who's invited to the party and like what like rooms are like separating them, the party's going on for sure. Um, so knock is like kind of the accumulated wisdom of this, because and this is something that I think is very much true. Um, there's the scene, the OSR scene, new, old, dead, ancient, living, still being born, is informing the way that RPGs are being designed. Some in the scene and some out, but there are people on the internet who are like having ideas and throwing them out in 50, 100, 500, 1,000 word blog posts,
Mhm.
and they are resonating with people online. They're being talked about, they're being discussed, they're being repudiated, they're being like a thesis statement that they threw out like just as like a brain fart are being discussed, and then those ideas get into game design, and then games are printed on dead trees and fly through the air through international shipping and go into your home. And the OSR scene is making game tech that other games are using. And like the essays that are writing that, I like those ideas and those like operating in that thought space are being written down by Knock and kind of aggregated and collected, kind of on a yearly basis. So I think that's the essential gimmick of the magazine. It's like, hey, here are some really usable pieces of game tech, and if you are playing a game like an old school game, you can pick them up and use them and plop them into your game, and if that appeals to you, they're very modular, they're very like pick up and play, they're very weird, they're very funny, they're very irreverent. So that's the magazine in a nutshell. I would say in a nutshell, but I've been talking for 10 minutes, so it's a big nut.
You're good. I'm just seeing if I can. Here we go. There's Mary Mushman. Go check that out. Go look at Knock. Hell yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for like honestly a lot of stuff that I've talked about on the show has been blogs because like the most interesting topics as a game designer, as a person who brings game designers onto the show, tends to come from blogs. Um,
I
I
think
wrote a
that's where a
blog.
lot. Yes.
I wrote a blog that I can't say
Yes,
the
you wrote
name
a
of
blog.
on
I
here.
read it.
Oh, I'm
I
glad.
read it. I read it today. It was great. I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's one of those like words that I'm like I will be happy to say with my friends and not at work.
Yeah, yeah, no, real. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not even allowed to say that on here. So just look around my account a little bit, and you'll find. Actually, hang on, go to eclipse.gay. Literally, I can link. Just go to eclipse.gay. It's there. Um, but yeah, it's been interesting, like starting to do stuff in blogs, because like it's not an area that I'm really used to, but also I did do journalism for 4 years as a student, so
Mhm.
it's fun though.
I think blogs' great appeal to me is the ability to like exercise thoughts.
Hmm.
I um I like gaming, so I think about it. And sometimes I get hung up on like a design thought, what if this was a game? It takes a long time to make games. Or not every kind of game, but like it makes a long time to make some kind of games. Sometimes it's just enough to get it out. Um, you don't have to make a polished PDF. You don't have to make even a good article. You can just kind of be like, "Hey, here's something I'm thinking about," and get it out of your head. And if it's still in your head, okay, cool. Maybe that is worth running with. Excuse me. And sometimes it's not. It's like, hey, this is a stupid idea I had, and if I didn't write it down, it would bother me at 3 a.m. for a week. So I'm writing it down one time to get it out of there. And sometimes that's it. Like I had a dumb idea, I put it on the paper and it got out of my head and I'm happy. And sometimes somebody else picks it up and that is the thing that I like the most about blogs. Is the conversations between blogs. Is
Hmm.
that you can get a stupid idea out and then somebody says, "Oh, no, you're wrong." And they actually
Hmm.
like advance the craft of RPGs like a little bit because they see a flaw in your approach and argue against it and make RPGs that much better because they like, I mean, at least for their practice. They like created like the perfect block against like a weak throat jab. And then other times people are like, "Hold on, that actually rules." And you threw it out as a dumb idea and you're done with it. And they take it and run with it. And oh man, that is cool. I really like to read other people's games that are, "Hey, you put this out into the world 10 years ago and I made a whole game out of it." And I'm like, "Wow, that's neat." James M. Spawn, who just did the White Box Cyclopedia, and Halfling Hijinks. I think he's making a game like based on one of my blog posts right now. Arrow Ray Otis, is that
Oh
did a
yeah.
game called There and Back Again,
Hmm.
um, which was based on the same blog post. I'm just like, I'm just tickled pink when somebody takes something I threw out, I just like as a brain worm and pulled it out of my nose and threw it into a blog to get it out of my head so it would stop bothering me. And they're making like full games based on them and or arguing about them and saying I'm wrong. Like I like both, but like that's cool. I really think that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, one could say that a lot of Sapphic World is like specifically. Obviously, this is not just yours, but a lot of its elaboration and like core philosophy comes from thinking about capsule games, which I know you were involved with.
Mhm. Well, yeah, I mean, like I think the cap. Well, I certainly didn't invent capsule games, but
Yeah,
like
you wrote the blog
the
for
word,
part of it.
you know.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. The word was coined by Ava Islam.
Hmm.
Like she was the, it was several people, several, I mean, just like us, like we're having a conversation right now. I was having a
Yeah.
conversation with Ava and Dwiz and several other people were like, I think like in the chat. Um, we were talking about like this thing. It was like we have seen games that are coming out that are kind of these standalone things. So to for the audience, um, we we were talking about games that are like, let's say, Lady Blackbird. Lady Blackbird is by John Harper, and and you can look it up. It's free. You can download it. You can play it tomorrow if you wanted to. It's a game about a genteel magic using lady escaping on like a spaceship from an arranged marriage to rejoin her um her one true love, this like pirate king, and like on the spaceship there's all these other characters. It's sort of like Firefly meets um Arcane maybe. And as opposed to like maybe a standard trad RPG, you can't be anything and play any story. It's like, no, this is the story of Lady Blackbird. You can
Hmm.
play Lady Blackbird and her handmaiden and like the engine goblin and like the captain of the ship, and it's a story about her escaping her arranged marriage. um and it's not, you can be anything and go anywhere. It's like, this is the story, these are the characters. It's kind of self-contained. And I wanted to call it something else, and I think even Dwiz had like another name. I think I was gonna call it like adventure games. Um,
Hmm.
and and Ava argued hard and eloquently to call them capsule games, so the terminology is hers. Um, but like we were all really excited about it because we had seen it in more and more places, not just Lady Blackbird, but things like Yaziva's. And things like, I mean, we have maybe a small list. I think Labyrinth RPG qualifies. I think Eat the Reich qualifies. And like anything, whenever you make a taxonomy, you're gonna make some things that like are like on the edge. You're like, well, doesn't your definition of capsule games allow for this? And you're like, I don't know. And like some things are a little squirmy, like a platypus lays eggs. But like the basic idea is that they're not forever 10-year long campaign. You can make anything experiences. They're pre-generated characters, small experiences. They're not new. We have been making them maybe as long as we've been making RPGs, but I definitely see a lot of them coming out right now. And I think they're going to get more popular as we like in the near future because of the popularity of some of the ones that have just come out. So capsule games, I'm very excited about them. It's a space I'm really excited to design in. It's a space I really love playing in. I love the capsule games I've been playing recently. So yeah, capsule games. Very excited about capsule games.
Hell yeah, me too. I really, uh, it's an area that I'm also very excited about. Because I'm
Mm-hmm.
not just uh, things that I am making, but also things that I would say most of the games that I've made in the last year have been the capsule games in some capacity, and I have a lot of colleagues who they love to steal my coins and my treasures, and they come into my house every night and they steal everything from me. Um, no, but like in all
Yes.
seriousness, like I have a lot of friends who I'm very flattered by how much they like seem to align with things that I think, I guess, or at least
Yeah, I
like
mean,
you know, yeah.
no, exactly right. I mean, this is the thing, right? Like we don't live in isolation. This is a extremely communicative medium. We get ideas from each other. We transfer them into each other. We iterate. I think that is the thing that I like the most.
R.A. Meccan makes a really good point, which is it's a lot to do with contemporary play culture to me. They are great for limited leisure times. I think that's a really, really good point about Capsule. Um, it's if I remember correctly, it's a point that that y'all made in the you all made in the article in the blog itself. Uh, quick
Yeah,
perhaps.
yeah, that's one of like the big, like, I don't know, the big obstacles to overcome with hobby gaming. And this isn't just
Mhm.
RPGs, like think about any long form legacy board game or like 80-hour um video game. Like who has that time? Many people don't. Like some people do. And I have nothing against that. But I think frequently people bump up against the sort of like expectations of, I want to play a a a D&D campaign for from level 1 to level 20, and I'm going to use the advice in the DMG to do that. And I'm going to be playing this game for 4 years
Mhm.
weekly, 2-hour sessions. And some people just don't have that kind of time commitment. It might be really, really fun to play a capsule game whose expectation, or a narrative game or a lyric game that like whose expectations are we get together, the characters are made as part of play. We play for 3 hours, and that game is done. We can put it down for a little while, and we can get back together if we want to. But like the expectation is not 4 years of our time.
Yeah. So another element of capsule games that I really enjoy, speaking of like, the playing of them is, I think especially in playtests between creators of different capsule games, there's a lot of joy to be found in like how a certain person portrays a character that you wrote, or even if you're
Mm.
playing a different, if you're like if I'm playing like Jay's Z with some friends, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
someone might play a character differently than I did just the previous session. And I think there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of fun to be had there.
I agree. Um, and that's one of the things I think also have people have been like iterating on in games for a little while, and capsule games has like brought back out into the forefront. I'm a big fan. I'm gonna do a little bit of a tangent here. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm a bit. Cheers. I'm a big fan of I like Tolkien games. I've played a lot of them. One of
Hmm.
my favorites is the Lord of the Rings adventure game. It came out in 1991. It's by Jessica
Hmm.
Ney. Um, and it's a licensed product. At the very end of Ice's run of the Tolkien licensure. And there are six pre-made characters in that, and rules to make your own. But there's in a almost capsule. In some ways it's somewhat of a trad game. But in other ways, it also has a lot of expectations that are similar to capsule games. Where there's these six kind of like pre-made characters and explicit rules for stable esque gaming in them, where like week to week, different people could play them. Different weeks. You might be the elf or you might be the ranger or whatever. And I thought that was like a really interesting early example of this kind of gaming. So I think capsule gaming,
Hmm.
and this might be a little bit of a hot take, in some ways is like resurrecting some playstyle expectations from older style gaming and bringing them back to the forefront in a new and different way, which is also something I'm interested in.
Yeah, I remember when Zeeb came out, I the thing that I kept saying about it was that it was a mix of it was a resurrection of some older things, and it was a kind of doubling down on some newer things, and I feel like that's true about a lot of my favorite games. I think of the last couple of years is that uh, I think in story games there is perhaps a belief that everything that's new is wise, um, and I don't think that's
Mm-hmm.
necessarily useful, even on a like micro scale. Like I think people have become. I've complained about this a million times on the show, but like as an example, I think people have. I think designers who are making PBTA games have really uh, started taking like saying that they're making a PBTA, but really they're making a Monster of the Week like. And Monster of the Week had some like serious design mistakes, in my opinion, that make it a lot worse than Apocalypse World. Um, my point being, I guess, just that I think people can be overly myopic and overly valorize what's new. Sorry, I'm like plugging in my phone really quickly. Okay, we're normal now. But yeah, God, we talked for a while. How do you feel about I mean, in a good way. I'm really enjoying this conversation. How do you
As am
feel
I.
about doing one of these articles and then taking a quick break?
Sounds great.
Hell yeah, we're gonna move over to the news. Let me bring in Cordis the news bird. Duh, duh, duh. Okay, yippee. Um, so our first thing here, we're gonna talk about the Polygon Best TTRPGs of 2024 list. Imagine, despite the fact that I have my hand on my mouse, I'm doing like big air quotes on 2024.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. Notice that.
some interesting things here. It's cool to see Quentin Quinn's doing a thing. I don't know much about City of Winter. Um, a lot of people who I find neat and cool talking about games that I don't know about, unfortunately. Um, I know about Jukebox. Seems very cool from what I've heard about. And then Rowan from Rascal, and the Starfinder playtest, which I actually haven't tried yet. And also Zeeb is mentioned by M. Freeman. So yeah, some um, I feel like one of the things that I found interesting about this article is like, and I think this is always true about these articles, but like it's just good to see it continue to happen. Is like I have some issues with Charlie Hall as a tabletop editor for Polygon, uh, just because I sometimes think that like you know uh, there's been conversations about it on Twitter on Blue Sky today. I'll probably talk about it next week, but like it is nice that there's such a diversity of like uh, folks here, like some I it's nice to see a lot of very different people from a lot of different parts of the space talking about games they love. I suppose is my point. Um, and it's nice to see Zeeb represented because I love Zeeb. Zeeb's great. Um, what else was I gonna say about this? Yeah, I kind of want to look into these games now because I feel like I feel like as a person who talks and thinks about games, I should know about them. But also, there's so many games.
Man, that's what what I was saying that if RPGs are a house, like I don't see all the parts of the house,
Hmm.
and it's these best of articles from Polygon or like god damn the Ennies or something, and it's like all these Ennie noms, and I've heard of so few of them, so few, and I'm flabbergasted. These people are like obviously talking about RPGs in like different spaces, and I talk about RPGs all day, every day,
Hmm.
into a point of exhaustion. And like, where are these communities? They're not in the spaces that I live. So like, of all the games that the Polygon article, I've only heard of so many, and but I feel this frequently. Whenever there's a big new Kickstarter, or again the Ennies nominations or something. I'm like, who's playing these games? Where are they coming from? I just don't. There's so many parts of the house that like I haven't gotten to explore yet. I haven't gotten to shake the hands of the people that live on the fifth floor. I'm down in the
Yeah,
basement.
and I get the sense that you're coming uh uh I get the sense you're coming at that from like not not the not, not the Nick Mullen uh, uh, Tucker Carlson impression. Who's jerking off to this? But more in a not in a disrespectful way, but in a
No, not in a
in a
disrespectful way
curious
at
way,
all.
right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Please. I'd
because I'm
like to jerk off
similar.
to this. Like, I love, I love, I love games. I'm just like genuinely surprised
Hmm.
when I feel somewhat plugged in and a bit like I have some ability to like talk about these nuances and like the theory and the logical details of the sorts of games that I like. And then somebody is like, "Well, my favorite RPG is this thing I've never heard of by a guy I've never heard of," and I'm like,
Hmm.
"Oh, cool! I've never heard of that." And like, the only thing I do is is think about games. So like, I'm really impressed by my own ignorance sometimes, and also, and another way to say that maybe more kindly, is that I'm really impressed with how broad, sweeping, um, inventive, and um, diverse the the gaming industry has gotten.
Yeah, I feel very similarly. Like it's when I see that a game that I don't know about is doing well, I feel like it's an invitation to either know about that thing or like to to adjust myself to the existence of that thing, or perhaps encounter that thing in some way unexpectedly. Um, and it's yeah, exactly. Mossy Kid is so right. I've never heard of that can be received as a gift, and I think it's very valuable to do that. Um,
Totally.
I try to do that as much as possible instead of I can be dismissive. Like I don't want to disregard that feeling in myself, but I think it's useful to try and not be. Uh, but something I wrote down here for us is I'd love to hear. Do you have any favorite games or game of the year? As many as you'd like to talk about.
Game of the year. Well, okay, so one thing you said this, but just to like reiterate your point, like
Oh right, yeah.
current game of the year, like these some of these games did not come out this year, right? Like, I like Gem Rune games. Those folks are my friends. I think this like Subway Runners came out around like COVID. This is like a game for the COVID era. By the way, just to shout them out, all of their games are on sale right now to raise money for the fires in California. So if you're interested in checking out Subway Runners, which is a Polygon game of the year, you can buy all their games at a discount for charity right now.
Let me see if
Um,
I can hunt that down. Here we go. Boom.
um, Yazeba's is the one here that like was one of my most anticipated um one of my most anticipated games. And it's also a game that is like, when does it get to come out? Is it the game? Is it the day that um, book arrives at your doorstep? Um, because that probably did happen this year. Is it the game? Is it the year that one more multiverse created a whole Yazeba's
Mhm.
environment that is now like collapsed? Is it the year that like I got the PDF? Like, what year does Yazeba's come out?
Uh, uh,
So if
it
I'm
is
gonna,
worth noting that the One More Multiverse thing is up. It's on Patreon now.
I am subscribed to the Patreon, but
Okay, so you
I mean, like,
sorry.
and God bless. I mean, I'm really sorry about. I was, I was a big One More Multiverse subscriber. I think the fact that
Hmm.
the business model was shaky is a real shame, and I'm real sorry to hear it.
Yeah, same.
Big supporter. Um. Anyway, let me think.
Hmm.
The big thing for me with games is like I just don't have enough time to play all the games that I want to play.
Right.
I'm lucky enough to have a game group that wants to play weird games with me. I don't think any of our games are are new. We're not especially because we have this like big backlog, right? Like the games that we're going to play, we're probably new when we put them on the backlog, but we have to work through them at a kind of a slow pace. Let's see, what did I play this year? Um that was new. We had this is gonna make me sound boring, but we did it on purpose. We were trying to like play these crunchy games, which are not my preference by any stretch of the imagination, but like I wanted to do a vertical tasting, kind of like when you do with wine, where you're like,
Hmm.
I'm gonna taste, the this vineyard's Cab Sav from 2017, 2018, 2019 to see how the differences in the years like impacted it. I played a lot of crunchy games. We played Lancer, we played Gubat Banwa, um, to try and get the feeling of like this tactical simulation. We played another Tom Bloom game, um, Kane, and the little Malif was his one that was like a tactical
Uh,
strategy game. Anyway, we played some Tom Bloom games because they keep making these very beautifully illustrated, really crunchy games. And we played those to see what they were like in
hmm.
comparison to each other. Um, I don't know that they're my favorite games, but they are games, and they're certainly not my favorite genre. But they are games that I have now tried and now have gotten the feeling of them compared to each other. Um, let's see what else came out this year. Black Sword Hack, that is by the Merry Mushman, so this is a little bit of a self-serving answer. I was not involved in that production. That is a beautiful game. That is a really, really cool game. It is a really tight. It is really well constructed, and the art by Goran is gorgeous.
Oh yeah, that
What about
fucks.
you?
Uh, I've actually already said mine, not here, but I had a thread on Blue Sky where I mentioned a bunch of different things that much of which were not RPGs. Um, but I'm gonna stand by these choices. Toxic Sword Lesbians, which I have not actually played yet,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I think philosophically is like really great. I don't want to go too much into why I think that is because it requires me to like kind of talk shit about the work of a bunch of trans women, and I don't really want to do that publicly. Um, I can go loose with it, which is just I think that it fixes a lot of issues with thirsty sword lesbians that I observe as a person who makes work that is about girls kissing each other. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I say fix instead of change because I think that, in my opinion, there are things that Thirsty Sword Lesbians does very well, and there are things that Toxic Sword Lesbians, and there are things that it doesn't do very well, and I think that Toxic Sword Lesbians does actually meaningfully change and fix those things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that would be my one of them, and then also Planet Fist, which I played a good amount of, which is by Jeff
Planet
Levine.
Sith.
It's what if PlanetSide, the video game, was a uh, like tactical PBTA. Um,
Mm.
I don't know how Jeff did it, but it's really really clever. I've played so much of it because I was helping. I was doing a bunch of playtesting for that, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just like it's got a good vibe. It's very Helldivers, I'd say, is kind of like
Mm-hmm.
the like comparison pitch for it. Um, like you're in an endless war. No one can really win. Nothing really matters. You're just trying to like give people badly. When your character dies, they're immediately reconstructed. um, like it is not interested in being a serious war game. Um, but I think that's what's made it really made it stick with me. Um, and also it's just been fun seeing Jess like add a bunch of new stuff to it and continue to evolve it. Um, it's good. But
It's awesome. I'll have to play that one. I'll have to look that one up, but I haven't played that one yet.
it's good. And I think that at some point Jess is gonna release a like kind of remastered version of that, so that'll be really cool. Okay.
Cool.
I think we'll take five, if that's all right. Come back
Sure.
at '06. Hell yeah. All right, we will be right back. See you all in a little bit. Hello, everybody. We're back with more Dovecote. We're going to continue talking about the news. I wanted to talk. So I've talked about Steepot. I talked about Steepot when it had its crowdfund. Um, it recently hit itch, and I want to talk more about it, and also a really great video essay by Aaron Voigt that I watched, and I want to talk about because a friend of the show, Aaron Voigt. uh, there's a lot of really interesting details with Steepot, and I think it's just interesting to kind of talk over. Um, Let me just make sure this is the right. Yeah, cool. So this is Steepot's itch page, and um, some of you might be wondering, like, hey, I played Steepot on itch in like 2015, and you'd be right. It was up there for quite a while, and you could buy it and play it. Um, However, it was taken down for a while because Evil Hat uh, is publishing it now, and they did a whole crowdfund for nice art and layout and edits. Um, and so when you look at it now, there's this whole page, and then actually, is that still a thing? I think they managed to drop the $999 thing.
I think they
For
managed to drop it. Yeah, it was.
At one point, it
I
was
I
nine hundred
hate.
ninety nine dollars.
Well, do you want to give the background for that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was not available on itch for a long while, because they were going through this crowdfunding process and publishing process, and so you have like this. I think one thing to note about this is like this is one of the first indie games that I played, like in like 2015, probably a little bit later, but like maybe 2016, 2017, um, and like it this is a like for some people this is a fundamental game. This is a classic, or at least like a you know a modern classic. um and it was like not you couldn't look at it for a while, or at least like you couldn't look at it if you didn't already have it for a while. You couldn't refer people to Steepot unless you just gave them a copy of it. Um and I guess as it was coming out, there was a point where it was $999.99 to dissuade people from buying it on itch, and then I guess they resolved that. um, and now it's like a full Evil Hat publishing thing, um, which is interesting. Yeah, what were you gonna say?
I, I just think. I mean, like, I did something similar, right? Where I put kind of the ash can up on itch to get funding for it, and the I I I perceived, I suspected, and I don't really know. I don't know the designer. And maybe you do. But I perceive that like they have to sell it now through Evil Hat instead of through
Hmm.
Itch, and so they both had to give updated copy um to people who had bought it previously at like the low price, and then couldn't sell the new one through Itch as well. And the $999 was trying to get around that
Hmm.
like intractable thing. It's like, hey, if you've already bought it, here's your here's your free version. Nobody else buy it, please buy it through Evil Hat. Um I is what I bet was going on there. And I'm glad they've got to figure it out, because when we first looked at it yesterday, there was probably 900 comments that were like, "What do you mean it's
I
$900?"
found the nine hundred
And
dollars thing. If you go to Steepot Final Version Release, and then you go down towards files, get Steepot $999.99.
oh yeah, oh my gosh, it's just another way for preventing people buying it here in case something else doesn't work. You
Uh,
an Evil Hat in February 10th. Man, I really I really am very sympathetic to the creator for like having to navigate these like kind of comments. I'm very sorry for them.
yeah, it's funny, but it's also like, oh god, that's gotta be annoying. Um, I am
Yes.
really curious. I'm gonna try not to make any judgments about this because I don't know the details, but I am very curious about what that Evil Hat contract looks like. Like, also like it is interesting that it's like just not on itch. Like you just can't. like Thirsty Sword Lesbians is on itch. Like other Blades in the Dark is on itch. Um, I'm curious why that happened here. Why that's the solution to this. Um, it's interesting. I'm sure there's an explanation for it. But I'm just kind of curious what that explanation is. Um, whether it's a technical
I certainly don't
limitation
know.
or yeah.
I but I would bet you the explanation is boring. That like
Yeah.
they just want to sell it through a different format through for like some period of time. I bet it is like super mundane, super um you know, super like just like marketing oriented. So I or like a launch that is coordinated with other things. Just normal things is my suspicion.
Yeah, I would agree. How do I even get this game? Steepot. I'm trying to figure
I,
out.
I think I
Is
think
it
in
not?
February 10th you'll be able to
Oh,
grab a copy from Evil Hat.
I understand now. Okay, I think I know what's happening. So I think this is going to eventually be. Yes, I'm assuming that February 10th. This is also going to become the normal itch page. It's just like
That's
we're
so
post Kickstarter pre-release,
exactly,
but people who had
exactly
Steepot on itch have this version of it. That's
right.
interesting. Yeah, you are probably
And I
right. That
think
is, there's probably a very mundane reason for this.
yes, I bet I suspect, and I don't know them uh, being on the other side of it just for a little bit. I bet it is such a mundane reason. Um, and I also I love the fact that people could throw in a couple bucks for an Ashcan game and then get what looks to be a really beautiful game coming out of that. I think that's a really great crowdfunding model. So I'm glad that they were able to like kind of like um take that tack.
Yeah, I would agree. I think seeing the way that this came out, and sort of the process for it, I think it's especially nice that like the folks who supported it first are getting it first. I think that's like neat.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, good for Takuma. I don't know Takuma that well, but we're oompies, I guess. So
Yes.
shouts out. Um, yeah, neat game. I really enjoyed it when I played it. Actually, I want to talk about the Aaron Voigt video essay a little bit. I'll close this though. So Aaron made this really great video essay about Stu Pot that remind me about a lot of details of it because I haven't been able to read it for years. uh, and something that I really appreciate about Stu Pot is it is both a game that is in conversation with D&D because it's a you are adventurers or retired adventurers who are running a tavern after your adventures are over, right? Um, and the like that premise is really contended with by like the sort of the kind of Firebrand style micro games in it. And so it manages to both be in conversation with D&D and kind of like you know uh not poking fun, but kind of like poking at the ribs of D&D. Um, and then like your character options are like D&D classes. They're fighter, wizard, rogue. I think there's like swashbuckler, just because you need a fun pirate. Um, but it is also an off ramp, I think, in some ways to D&D because it's meant to be, you know, you play a D&D campaign and then your GM is like, hey, we're gonna play this other game that's gonna be our epilogue, um, and it opens you up to all these other possibilities for like how a game can interact with narrative, which I think is neat. I think is an interesting has an interesting you know possibility space for uh, off ramping folks from D&D. Although I do think there are like maybe different ways to do that because I think groups have very different needs and get very different things out of
Hmm.
D&D, but that's a
Hmm.
it's a whole other thing.
What
Um,
a like thematically appropriate off ramp because it's all about retired adventurers, right? Like
mhm.
so, like if you retire from adventuring, adventure classique, and you do a little story game for a little while. I mean, I think isn't that thematically appropriate?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. Um, I think that like I've thought a lot about off ramps to D&D because it is like something that it's not a like explicit aspiration with Sapphic World, but it is like a thing that I've identified that game does and thought about like how it can do it better. Um,
Mhm.
because there is a part of D&D. There's an amount of D&D people who are simply there to like fuck the dragon, right? Like that is
Right.
a part of it. Um, and the and then I think similarly, like I think there are a lot of uh, people who really enjoy D&D who would probably enjoy an OSR game more, um, or a BOB game more. Like I think that there are a lot of
Mhm.
different wings.
Yes.
Yeah, people come to D&D for very different reasons, and I think extracting those reasons and using them to seduce them away is at least from my perspective good good and cool. Um, yeah, uh, and I suppose I just hope that Stewpot seduces some people because it's a cool game.
Well, I
Um,
mean, if I got inspiration from Dungeon Meshi, I think that like, I mean, one of the, I mean, according to their little itch page here, like one of them is one of the scenarios that you can play is, like making monster stew or whatever. Like, I
mhm.
think that people are who are looking to like have a different kind of experience where like just talking about making your tavern are going to find something here. And it is really different than from D&D. It looks like, there's just like these kind of open-ended role-playing scenarios, but like for some, like you said, people come there for different reasons and they're trying to get away from it for different reasons, and maybe they'd like this game for whatever. And maybe not all the time either. You don't have to like feel like it's not it's not sports teams. You don't have to
Mhm.
like have one favorite. They do different things at different times, like play different games at different times based on what you want to do. And, you know, I think you can say like, okay, cool, for a little while I want to do this, not because you hate D&D necessarily. Like maybe keep playing D&D and just like sometimes play this. I guarantee you this is not hard to pick up. This is not something you have to learn the rules for. It seems extremely rules light. Just like play it once and have like a different kind of Sunday. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think 90% of the work of being an indie designer on the internet is unwinding the mental tangles that people get themselves in to explain why they can't play anything other than D&D. Um,
Oh my God. It's my number one pet peeve. It drives me insane.
like the point. Listen, once you say that like telling me to stop playing D&D is ableist or
Oh
like
my God.
a classist, then we've jumped off a cliff in terms of like plausibility, I think.
Yes. We've gone into a different realm.
Yeah, yeah. Um, speaking of realms, I don't know, I don't know what that transition is. Um, let's talk about the bloggies. Um,
Sure.
it's been really interesting. I have not been able to participate as much as I'd like to because I've been at work and such, but it's been neat seeing it. They've been doing like a public voting style where it's like public polls. Um, is that how they've done in the past? Because I have not really kept up with the bloggies in past years.
Yeah, well, so it's relatively new. So the Bloggies, for people that don't know, is a community, a very community run um award season. It was started, I think, 3 years ago. So this is not. I'm pretty sure it's three, but if I'm wrong, please forgive me. So it is not. It's not the Oscars.
Hmm.
They were started by Warren Smith, who put out Barkeep at the Borderlands. His blog is prismaticwastelands.com. Palamine. And
Cool blogs.
they,
Good shit.
I'm sorry?
Just
Hmm.
just like a cool site overall if you're looking for like neat games and cool blogs.
Oh, yeah.
Prismatic Weekly
Oh, yeah.
or Prismatic Wasteland.
Yeah, Prismatic Wasteland. A lot of, I mean, I was singing the praises earlier of like blogs that just like kind of like get cool ideas out there, and
Hmm.
Warren has a ton. Good designer, cool guy. And he's just like, hey, like I like blogs. Let's vote on the best blogs. He did that 3 years ago. He started it. I think that's right, man. Now that I'm saying this, I'm worried that I'm forgetting some sort of like crucial detail and I'm leaving somebody out. And I will feel awful when that is revealed to me. So accept my apologies in advance. Um, I think the next year was won by ZXU, um, and from ZX Writing Hours is their blog. A very accomplished RPG writer. And then that year, a newcomer, Sasha Goat, just
Hmm.
started a blog that year. I think because of the bloggies, they were like, "Wow, this blogging's really worthwhile. I can see people are having really poignant conversations there and really doing some meaningful game design. I'll start a blog too." And then like because of that, they started a blog and then won the bloggies that same year. Like a first year winner, which I think is just great and like really speaks to the kind of like the low overhead that getting a blog need. People are like, what blogging platform do I need to do? What do I need to do to ramp up to this? And it's like, baby, nothing.
Hmm.
Get a blogspot.com, get a bear.blot, like whatever it is that you use to throw words on the internet, get a Zanga, get a live journal. I don't care. Like just throw your ideas out there and people will read them. There is an audience for this. So Sasha is running them this year because they won last year, and that's the tradition, right? Like
Hmm.
when you win bloggies, you host the bloggies.
There can only be one.
So I think then they're kind of yeah. So yes. So to answer your question, they've always had essentially the structure. There's like 4 different categories, and they've gone up into bracket voting, which is very, very intense for me because
Hmm.
I love some of these posts and I hate to see them pitted against each other. And I hate when my posts are up against a banger because I'm like, no, that post is so good. Anyway, it's this bracket voting. There's 4 categories like theory, gameability, reviews, and they vote down, and then like uh, the best post is bracketed against each other, and they win the ultimate bloggy for that year, and then the next year they host.
Hell yeah. Uh, it's listen. Some of these have been really heated. I've been watching a little bit. It's cool stuff. I've not been able to read as many of these as I'd like to because I've been working, getting money. Uh,
Boo.
but some really neat stuff. The ones that I have read are great. I'm I listen. Jay is my friend, so I'm gonna advocate for folks. Even though it lost, I'm gonna advocate for folks to read uh, 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 Rules of
Puppy
Vacation,
girl.
Puppy Girl, because it's great. Um, but yeah, I think I'm going to go back. Oh, actually, Summer Lego RPG Setting Jam. I know about this one. I like this one a lot. Um, this is one that you should look at. I think that's my that's Eclipse's take. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. It's really cool. Like uh, it's kind of an incomprehensible amount of text is the thing. Like when you think about the bloggies are like naval battle. It's like these massive ships like firing cannonballs at each other from across the bow, um, with incomprehensibly large trees. Um, but yeah, very cool stuff. Um, any stuff in the ranks that you're happy to see thriving, doing well, or just generally represented?
Yeah. Well, one, just to like to finesse your point a little bit. One of the great things I think about blogs is that they're there for you when you want them.
Hmm.
Please, I don't want anyone to think that when I'm advocating blogs, I need you to go and read every blog that's ever been written about RPGs from 2007 till now to understand what I'm talking about. I don't want to sound like that guy. They are there though when you find a blog you like. It's like finding, oh man, it's like finding a music artist you like. You're like, oh my gosh, this person has a backlog. There's 10 albums I get to listen to. I love this. I can't believe I didn't know
Hmm.
about this. Why didn't anybody ever tell me about this? So like, you're gonna find the blog that's for you, and it's gonna send you down a rabbit hole because they are linked out to other people and they reference other people and they're riffing on other people. And it's gonna be like this gaming revelation for you. I hope. Um, so don't think that you have to read all of these, but like the fact that they're there, I think is cool, and you can go through them. Yeah, I mean, like, so like Jay's my friend. All these people, I know. This is probably my scene, so like, I know more of these people than I should. And I like them as well. Um, Priz is great. I've already mentioned him.
Hmm.
The originator of the bloggies. Um, oh man, okay. Let me highlight some of the ones that were like kind of bumped out in early rounds of
Yeah.
voting that I think didn't get their didn't get to their due because they like kind of like got it's this is the problem with brackets, right? Like
Hmm.
it's not that it wasn't great. It's that it just didn't survive long enough to like get the experience points that it needed to like get the way all the way through. Um 10 Minutes and a Knife by Benign Brown Beast, and also Benign Brown Beast had, oh my god, why Ian, you need to have a more pronounceable blog name. There was another one by Benign Brown Beast, called Thermo. What was it called? Thermodynamics for game design. Also
Yeah.
by Ian of Benign Brown Beast. Both of those are great. Neither of them survived super long. But I think those were real sleeper hits from this year. Um, Let me see. Um, Coins and Scrolls. If you're not familiar with the blogging world, Coins and
Hmm.
Scrolls and Goblin Punch are both some old heads. They've been in the scene for a long time, and because of that, they have a really big backlog. And if you like either of their entries from this year, let me encourage you to like kind of go back down that rabbit hole. One of the ones that has moved on into a kind of advanced category is from one of my very favorite blogs, Nazirian's Garden. Ben L of Nazirian's Garden does the zine and now the Patreon for the game Through Alton's Door. And
Hmm.
my God, if that guy doesn't have like some of the most well articulated, like clear, concise, beautiful writing of like the OSR sphere, I really like the way that he approaches game design and dungeon design. And I think his posts this year were great. Luke Gearing works for Mothership, or I guess I should say like Tuesday Night Games. His
Hmm.
reputation tables are great. I really like these sort of like one-offs from him. He like makes a lot of like cool games and cool posts, but sometimes he has like a little piece of like RPG tech that kind of like spins off and you can pull it out, kind of like divorced from everything else.
Yeah.
Um, he's obviously like a big get Elm Cat. I'm really enjoying. They're somewhat newer to the scene, or I'm not as familiar with their work, and I'm enjoying to read it as I come across it. I really think that Elm Cat is something special. And this, let me make sure I'm gonna say one more just because like, oh man, okay, two more.
Hmm.
And this is not indicative of the fact that I think like there's so many blogists and bloggers that are on this list that I'm not giving their due to. But Mindstorm has to be one of the more like innovative and like quieter game designers on the scene. Their horror scenario, um, Jesus, what was that called? Something about a pig. It was great. I
Oh
really like
yeah,
his blog posts. I think his blog posts are have so many like good ideas, and this is one of the ones I've mentioned this a couple times. I can tell that his ideas are like getting picked up, getting put into games, and it's not about credit or but it's just like the evolution of ideas of like this germ started here and you can see it like transplanted, like floating across the ocean, taking root in another game and like springing up. He is seeding modern games. And in terms of like reviews, there is one person like far and away in terms of like reviews. The Playful Void's bathtub reviews um have been, I mean, she has done like one review a day for weeks, for months.
damn.
Nobody has done more for the RPG review scene, which is I think like a huge gap. And so
Oh
this is a
yeah,
huge service, like just a service for the RPG scene as a whole. I can't believe how much content they produced, and not like spuriously, like thoughtful, considered, and like the bellwether of like their review metrics. Like you can disagree with her or not, but the consistency of her review scheme has allowed you to be like, I will like this module or I won't because I know how my personal views kind of like align against hers. So like the bathtub review series is has been a real blessing for the scene this last year. So I would really encourage you to go to playfulvoid.blog.game, or I'm sorry, .game.blog, if you're interested in like reviews, because there's a million, and she's done a really, really good job.
hell yeah. So folks have I posted all those links. So folks have a lot of stuff. If you want to look back through this chat, if you want to save any of those that sound interesting or open them up, bookmark them. Those all sound really cool. I'm excited to sift through this stuff at my leisure at some point. Um, hell yeah. I think that's it for news stuff. So we'll bring in the last bird, Apocrypha, the male bird, and we will talk about the mail. I've only received one email, but I think it's an interesting one. It will open up some conversation, I think. Um, let me also say, if anyone wants to send me or Josh a question, please send that to darlinggameandeclipse@gmail.com, or even just a conversation that you'd like to hear us talk about. It can be anything. I'm not picky. Uh, so, uh, this is from VIP question asker, aka Goblin, aka Skippity Bobbin Dada. Um, uh, this is less of a question and more of a statement. Uh, Check this out. It's a TTRPG publisher that focuses on making TTRPGs for the incarcerated. On the library page, there's free digital downloads too.
Mm.
This is Bull Press, which I've heard about and seems really interesting. The Actually, I'll read the front page just so I'm not kind of waffling about stuff that I'm not really, you know. So I'll just read this bit. So most people don't know that tabletop slash conversational games are huge in prison. Anybody who's volunteered to their local books to prisoners' workspace knows one of the most requested items are game manuals. It makes sense if you think on it. It's something inherently pro-social and creatively fulfilling in a place lacking electronic entertainment. The only problem is most games are contraband. Hardcover, contain maps, require dice, and run material that can put a target on your back. We started Bull Press to tackle this neglected corner of the hobby. We now get donation requests from prisoners across race, gender, background, security level from every region of the U.S. and even other countries. Our do-gooder mission isn't a gimmick we're hoping to coast on, though. If you try one of our games, we're confident it will land in your top 3 of all time. Very cool. Uh, Thank you, Goblin, for reminding me of this because I do think it's something neat to talk about on the show, and also these just seem to be like really interesting games, really visually and conceptually cool games, and they have a Books to Prisoners program. So
Awesome.
highly recommend folks go buy some stuff from them, go help them get books to prisoners, and yeah, cool shit. Um, do we have anything else? Does anyone have any questions? You can also ask questions in the chat, and I'll answer them for a little bit. Um, chat, email, whatever. I'm not picky. Um, otherwise, I think we will wrap up because I think this has been a good solid episode. Um, I'll give folks a second here as I decide who we're rating. Oh, I have not logged into Twitch. Oh, the suffering. All right, let me figure that out really quickly because that is going to be important for figuring out who I'm going to raid. Because I'm not going to raid some of the top people playing playing games on Twitch. I'm not raiding Kai Cenat. Here we go. Is this on Authy? Or no, it's SMS. Okay. Da 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 da. Let me see. Any questions? No? Okay. I think we're gonna wrap up then. Thank you all for watching. Thank you so much for being on, Josh. I really appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything besides stuff that we've already talked about that you'd like to promote or direct folks towards?
Gosh, I don't know. Guess not. Thanks so much for having me. If you're interested in stuff, I mean, I a big I'm a big blog advocate. You can read my blog thoughts on riseupcomus.blogspot.com. My game is called His Majesty's the Worm. You can we are out of stock right now, but you can buy that on Exalted Funeral. You can buy the PDF from Itch. If you're interested in like collected OSR wisdom, please check out the backlog of Knock and check out the forthcoming issues coming out this coming year. If you're interested in dungeon design, I am doing a dungeon design like course right now, like kind of slowly releasing. You can see that linked on my blogspot as well. So yeah, thank you again for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm gonna raid into Mcroo Taimu. Uh, Fuck it, I'll do a raid phrase because I'll do a bit that she'll understand because I think she's playing SS14 right now. Uh, uh, just copy the text that I'm gonna post. Sunky Bebo watching. Um, she'll know what that means probably, I think. Yeah, thank you all for being here. Thank you so much for coming on, Josh. And goodbye, everyone.
Remember, if you don't like what you see, you can change it. It's up to you, really. Goodbye, good luck, and have fun!